Bending Spoon did it again. So Bending Spoon acquiring Brightcove for $233 million.
I should name the newsletter The Week in Bending Spoons.
Brightcove basically is a company working in the cloud video space. They gained some popularity back when cloud video kind of started. This is the sixth acquisition from Bending Spoon.
In this case, this is a public company. We have a lot of information about them.
So Bending Spoon is offering 4.45 when actually the mark to market would be like 4.27. They're paying a little more than their revenue. Trailing 12-month revenue is about 200 million. Let's dive right in. A lot of interesting news in the coming week, starting from Volta, French-Italian startup, basically working on B2B transaction, kind of Shopify style. So they raised a 6 million euro round in what they defined a pre-seed round led by Emblem and participated by HCapital, Founders Future, Sequoia, A16Z, Exor, and Ithaca. So a few interesting elements over here, I would say, starting from the fact that they define a 6 million round in Europe as a pre-seed. So that's quite unusual. What's your reaction to that?
No, I
don't have.
The label was kind of, you can stretch them a little bit, so I wouldn't be too strict in trying to define the labeling system. Even though basically what they did was a nice marketing stunt, that's for sure. The biggest pre-seed round ever since the JetHR one. So it's a way to make the news more noticeable, more interesting in some sense. It's kind of for sure marketing content. It is also true that the lead investor Emblem, which I didn't know, I have to admit, they seem to be focused on pre-seed rounds. So from Crunchbase, every round that you can see involving them, it's easily labeled as a pre-seed round. So maybe this time is really true. It is a pre-seed round. Still,
interesting, yeah.
Nice.
And the value proposition also is pretty curious because mid-sized companies and wholesaler in particular, they still run a lot on paper catalogs and manual order taking, which for retailers that's kind of surpassed thanks to Shopify and other platform. But mid-sized company are not there yet, so they're kind of trying to conquer a niche, which is very sensitive and it's really focused on B2B. So that's an interesting take that honestly I didn't think about, but for B2B it's like kind of applying efficiency basically it works really well in retail back to B2B where there is like a huge need of it and a huge need for disruption. So very, very interesting take, and I can see how this I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but it definitely has a lot of elements that can make this work really fast, I would say.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. In some sense, B2B transactions are a huge market. And there's still a lot of traditional economy in there. So the play makes sense. So from the outside, so very interesting. Yeah.
Pretty cool also the location of the team. So half of the team is in Italy, half is in Paris, and is a kind of pan-European companies. I mean, again, there is no geographical limits. Geographical limits are playing less and less overall at this point. So huge round, early stage, and still they managed to sort of pull this off. So very interesting for sure.
Yeah. Regarding just a quick note regarding my tracker. So I added this startup to the tracker, but we have some, concerns since it appears to be headquartered in Paris, not in Italy, even though there is a controlled entity operating out of Italy. So, I mean, everybody's talking about the Milan-based startup, but it's kind of, mixed. Really mixed.
Yeah, no, I wonder how maybe in the future when this kind of hybrid team or double team are going to play, are you going to add like a weighting factor to your calculation depending on the cap table? Like what's going to happen, Nick?
I think I will just give up altogether.
Interesting.
Or losing the constraints. So is there at least 20% of the cap table owned by an Italian?
Let's go.
Fine.
Let's do it.
Show me the
good
passport.
enough.
Show me the passport. Even though you're right, so this is a concern. But on the other way, this is a kind of an important trend, something that we should all root for, because that means that the European market is becoming more liquid, at least in terms of talent and interactions among
Yeah.
people. And that might be one of the important prerequisites for the what was the 20, the new proposal about the European company, right? So I don't remember the number of the proposal. Sorry, but it's probably more important than the legal approach. So you need people moving and working together in order for that to make full sense. Otherwise, it's just another way to label a box.
Interesting, super interesting. And I'm gonna push your reasoning to say that at some point, probably having a double team is gonna be a positive signal for VCs, just because having founders in other part of the planet can actually enhance fundraising, exit opportunities, and a network which is not necessarily close to the local founders network. So again, exponentially getting more and more contact in more and more market quicker. So why not?
Yeah, let's say that if that came out so quickly, I bet there's a data analyst somewhere doing this research. So if you're doing it, and if it is you, please reach out. I'm very curious about
Awesome.
if there is any correlation among the mix in terms of nationality and the outcome.
Interesting. Right, moving on, let's talk about Reefilla. So, companies from Turin, a startup that develops energy storage and mobile power generation solution, basically focusing on giving batteries a second life, announcing a new 4.5 million round from CDP Venture Capital, HCapital, Azimut, and Motor Valley. So, interesting company. What we saw is that they did basically a first round, a 1 million round in 2022. The product was not quite there yet, if I remember well. So very interesting because they're kind of delivering on their promises. So with a million, they kind of developed and they validated. And now basically it's the time for actually implementing like a wider plan for growth. So very interesting, definitely a good example on how they're progressing forward.
No, nice story.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mopac. So circular packaging, and it plays a big role in sustainability. Of course, packaging is one of the probably like less talked about problem happening right now because of the popularity of delivery platforms. So a lot of companies are working in the space, trying to take it from different angles, starting basically from basically sustainable packaging materials, which is kind of the first level and the first solution. These guys are actually taking a different approach. So they're basically recycling plastic and making a reusable packaging solution for deliveries. So very interesting take on this. And the company raised 2.3 million from 360 Capital, Grainer, Innoventure, and Techstars. To launch also in the UK. So interesting take, interesting angle, and already again, even at the early phase, a very international spirit to kind of tap into one specific foreign market beside Italy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And curiously enough, this is the second circular economy deal of the week, because also Reefilla is basically a circular economy play. So there's a trend there. Climate and impact investors should be happy that there are solutions coming up with trying to solve actual problems. And I've got another piece of interesting news. So this was a round led by 360. And they're onto something because this is the second investment they're making into the packaging space. So they invested in Voidless earlier this year, back in February, I believe. So interesting. So they're going really after this problem.
Yeah, I mean, Voidless, if I remember well, they were trying to optimize the space given the content of the packaging. So basically they have a solution on that side, kind of customizing the packaging around the content. So super interesting take on demand, the customization. And this is another angle. So, well, maybe there is some pattern emerging for sure. Yeah, Nick, good point for sure. All right, let's talk about Bending Spoon. So we have to talk about Bending Spoon, of course. So
Again,
acquiring again, of course, it's a huge story touching
so
different.
I should name the newsletter "The Week in Bending Spoons." So
The epic of Bending Spoon. That's an epic story. So definitely kudos to the team. Amazing, of course. Operations. So Bending Spoon acquiring Brightcove for 233 million US dollars. And Brightcove basically is a company working in the cloud video space since 2012. They gained some popularity back when cloud video kind of started. So actually, when they IPO'd, they become really popular to that. And then there was like a little bit of a decline, but then always stable. And this is the sixth acquisition from Bending Spoon. After Meetup, Mosaic Group, StreamYard, Issue, and WeTransfer. So, what was the first thinking, Nick, when you heard about Brightcove?
yeah, again. No, I mean it was again another one. So I wouldn't have found out. So you remember last time we spoke about this? It was who will be the next one? Video streaming. So again, it doesn't surprise me so much, but still interesting move. In this case, this is a public company, so it's we have a lot of information about them. Um, uh, well, what should I say? It's interesting play to see the strategy unfolding. Remember that last week, if I remember well, last week or a couple of weeks ago, they announced, or there was a leak actually, that the board of Bang Spoons would be going to issue new shares for 40 something million euros. And this is probably related. This is them continuing to acquire companies that probably want to enlarge the equity cushion in order
Yeah.
to support the acquisitions.
Awesome. So just a few context from Yahoo Finance. I think that can be probably valuable. The stock from Brightcove went in IPO at $11. Then it went pretty much like up and down, riding $4 to $10. There was a peak, imagine, during COVID, well, pre-COVID, where of course they reached like 20 something, 21 or 22. And then kind of the price declined. And this year in particular, they settled around like $2.5, $2.4. So Bending Spoon is offering 4.45. When actually the mark to market would be like 4.27. So there is a little bit of a premium to that. They're taking it private, of course, so they need to beat a little bit this. But yeah, roughly they're paying a little more than basically what is, I believe, their revenue. Because the current enterprise value is estimated at 188, and the trailing 12-month revenue is about 200 million. So very interesting. They're close to revenue numbers, I would say. The good point, I think, is that the Brightcove has a very strong cash position. So they have like about 29 million in cash. And the levered cash flow, which is the levered free cash flow for the trailing 12 months, which is basically what remains after everything is paid, including debt and everything, is a good solid 12 million. So there is something there. There is definitely value, not only in the technology, in the customer base, but also in the capability of the company to generating cash. So very interesting position for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if they play the usual game of acquiring and optimizing costs in particular, that means that they acquire quite a nice cash flow. Cash
Exactly.
cow, sorry.
Exactly. So my next question then is that what's going to happen next? So are they keeping all these portfolio companies independent, or they're trying to play the future of a big sort of platform integrating all these technologies? So what's going to happen? Tough to say, very tough to say, probably.
So
Awesome.
according to LinkedIn, there are more than 500 people involved with Brightcove.
It's
700
yeah,
on LinkedIn.
627 from Yahoo Finance. So yeah, huge amount of people for sure.
And if you remember the discussion around what they did with WeTransfer, so laying off quite a bunch of the stuff, would they be playing the same game with Brightcove? I don't know. Maybe.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining. That concludes this week's episode, and I'll see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Thank you so much. Ciao, everybody. See you in a week.